Good afternoon, Dr. Elaine Worzala. We're so glad to have you at Realtor University. As I've done research with you and listened to your projects for many, many years, you are an inspiring woman to have in front of our students and faculty to learn about education for real estate professionals. And so please give me a short introduction of your background.
Okay. Well, thank you very much again for inviting me to come on down and talk with you about real estate and real estate education. So my background is I basically fell into real estate, as most people do. I'm not sure if you're aware, but at an undergraduate level, oftentimes real estate will be an elective for a finance class, a finance major, or some other business degree. I was doing a marketing degree at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And that particular program is one of the oldest in the country. And there is a professor there, he's passed away, but his name was James Graskamp.
Yes.
And he had an introductory real estate course that was highly acclaimed. And my boyfriend at the time had taken it and suggested I do it as an elective. I literally just took it just to get it out of the way, get an elective out of the way. And he was a very inspiring teacher, but it was also the way the course was taught. It was a very hands-on course. It was a very applied course, and it was very much trying to make the average person realize how important real estate is to every individual, that everybody should have a little bit of a background in real estate. And when I took the course, I realized I was doing a marketing degree, and what I realized about real estate was it's very much a small business, and you use all the different parts of a real estate, of a business degree when you're working on a piece of real estate. So you have to know a little bit about law, you need a little bit about accounting, finance, marketing, management, but you're not focused in on just one of them. And like say a finance major might be focused in on stocks. So anyway, so I took that class and took another one and was about to graduate, and it was a terrible recession, which some of the students are hitting right now, and they had a master's program, and I was sharing, a couple classes were shared between the undergraduate and graduate, and so some of my friends were graduate students, and they saw me struggling, trying to figure out what kind of job made sense in a really down economy, and so they said, why don't you stick around and do the master's, and it's kind of like, okay. So I really did fall into it. I really fell into it, but I've never looked back. I've absolutely loved it, and wouldn't trade it for the world. I got my master's, went out as a commercial appraiser, worked with a company in San Francisco.
You showed me when we were there for a conference some of the properties that you valued.
So, and one of the nice things about an appraisal job is you do get to see a lot of different projects. In a short period of time, kind of like a broker's job. You're not tied like a development job. When you do real estate development, you're kind of tied with one project for a long, long time. And some of the other fields are a little bit more flexible, and you get to see a lot in a short period of time. So yeah, so then I did the commercial appraisal for 3 years. I actually worked here in the Chicago markets. I appraised. There was a large, at the time, one of the first institutional investment advisory firms, portfolios called the Reef Portfolio.
Yeah.
And they're very active here well, they're all over the country, but they have a lot of holdings here in Chicago. And I valued their properties for 3 years before I went back to work on my graduate degree, my doctorate.
Your doctorate degree was where?
Again, I went back to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It's called Real Estate and Urban Land Economics. And I was pretty much recruited by the same gentleman that I told you about that taught my first class. He was a strong mentor for many of us, and he approached me with there was a doctoral spot, and he approached me and asked me if I was interested in doing a doctorate, and kind of fell into teaching that way too, because I really didn't know what that meant. But I came back and did the doctorate, and again, I've loved teaching real estate ever since.
Well, you're not only teaching, you do research, and you help create programs for real estate.
Yes,
Since I've known you, I didn't know you at University of Wisconsin, but I do know who you worked with. He was really considered one of the best in the world in real estate education at that time, and a terrific person to work with and to get you started. And he obviously pushed you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
From there, tell me about the schools that you went to. A little bit more about your background.
Okay. So I finished my doctorate in '92. I focused my research, I don't know if you're interested in that, but I focused my research on international real estate investment. At the time, we were a pretty insular economy, and we had no web, we had no internet, so we had no access to information across the world. And so, but about 10 years prior to that, the financial community had convinced or had realized the benefits of diversification when you looked at stocks and bonds and currencies, but nobody had actually said, let's think about it from a real estate perspective. So I did a study that tried to show that it made sense to diversify across countries as well as across cities and economic base, which is what we had been studying for the most part up till then. So I finished my degree and went to the Colorado State University, and in Colorado State University there was an undergraduate program. So I was primarily responsible for teaching most of the real estate classes as a tangent to a finance degree. And again, that's the most traditional way real estate's taught here in the U.S. is part of a finance degree or an economics degree. So I did that for 10 years and got recruited to the University of San Diego. And at the University of San Diego, they wanted to begin to do some graduate education. So I worked with the community, the professional real estate community there in San Diego, as well as worked with a lot of my alumni base from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And between the two, I kind of surveyed, as you and I have done surveys. This was a predecessor of the surveys that we've worked on. And so I actually surveyed the local real estate professionals in San Diego and then the Wisconsin Alumni Network and Real Estate Alumni Network, and then kind of came up with kind of what they felt really was an important set of skills to have within a real estate graduate program.
When you started mentoring me in a way, because that was
met at that airport.
And it was the first time I went to Aries, and I was really focused on, in my doctoral program, which I graduated in 1998, I went back after my kids were getting older, and my chair had convinced me not to give up real estate as my field and to make it and to understand the practitioner and the education and what needs to happen to have a better educated practitioner. So I was doing that, and then as I interviewed a lot of business leaders in Chicago, I realized that they were more and more hiring for the big companies, people with master's degrees. And so when you and I met was the first paper that I had done on graduate education, and then you gave me a lot of advice, and since then we've been doing research and sharing information, and you've been a remarkable person to work with, and,
thank you.
Very kind, which is not always in real estate research. It's not always what you get, but I've learned a lot. So as you went on, because you went from University of San Diego, which would you consider that a traditional graduate degree?
No, that was a brand new one. I modeled it very much after the Wisconsin model, which again is the philosophy that it's a much more holistic view. It's multidisciplinary. Real estate's multidisciplinary. You need to have a background in all the different disciplines. We can't teach you to know all the answers, but we can teach you to ask the right questions. And so if you understand how an architect talks and speaks, and you understand how construction, and you understand how the law profession works, and so basically we added courses that, again, not super depth. You're not going to become a lawyer, but you understand the laws and you know to ask the right questions. So that was a pretty general degree, because our competition was USC down in LA or up in LA, and they were more focused on development. So then when I was there for 4 years and was recruited to go to Hopkins, and Johns Hopkins has also had a relatively lengthy program that's been around a long time. They were originally founded by the Rouse company, and the reason they got founded was because the real estate Rouse company wanted all of their vendors, all of their professionals who were providing services to them, to understand real estate from the way they understood real estate. And Rouse, if you remember, was a large infill, multi-use kind of developer. They did Faneuil Hall in Boston, and they did the Baltimore Harbor, and they did a lot of, but they also did a lot of shopping centers, and so literally the company got together their main lawyers and their main accountants and finance and marketing, and then they had classes and all those. So the program there has a part-time program, an evening program, and then we were creating a daytime, or I was recruited to recruit an accelerated daytime program. So the evening program's part-time, takes about anywhere from 2 to 4 years to do, depending on the scheduling. And the accelerated program, we're setting it up to do in a year.
And then from there you went to Clemson University.
Right, and the Clemson program is completely, it's very, very similar, but it's in a completely different environment because it's part of a College of Architecture, Arts, and Humanities. So it's part of of those other disciplines, apart from the straight business, which is the other two programs are in the business school. And so it was founded originally by a planner, and so it has a lot of community planning, master plan communities, and then it brings the architecture in and then the business school side. So, and it has those courses. And I was at that program for about 6 years, and then recently moved to College of Charleston.
And